you set up the pace of the program. So this is kind of related to the Hypermobility Solutions, like the larger program, but would really apply to any of the mini modules, or to some degree any other exercise program that you kind of shift into. The big thing is that when you are pacing, you are trying to get through at about 50 to 75% effort. So if you are trying to force your way through it and you're trying to get all the stuff in, that can be tough. You're not going to be as effective. You're not going to get as much from it. But kind of a steadier pace it is much more effective that way. Now, the way the General Hypermobility Solutions program is set up is that it's designed for you to do one module a week. So in a course of 10 weeks, 2.5 months, you can get through the entire program. Now, that being said, everybody's life is different. Health is different. If you end up getting COVID and you're down for 2 weeks, that's going to impact your ability to participate in the program. If you have big things going on life-wise, as much as I would like to say you should be able to dedicate a certain amount of time and you should be able to work through this, I find that the reality is that some people have a better opportunity or more time and effort to be able to put into it than others. And so you really do want to try and do it at the pace that is right for you, but set that up in the beginning. So it's designed for one module a week. So I would say start with trying to go through one module a week. And often people will think that they have more time or ability to move through things than they do. Sometimes people feel like it seems like a lot, but then if you're watching the videos and you're reading through the information, like it's actually pretty doable. Everything in the program is designed to be incorporated, and so depending on how much mental energy you have, sometimes it's easier than others. So always start with the one module per week, and then from there, make adjustments. So, and try and kind of live in reality, which means you're not overly optimistic that you can do more than you can, but at the same time, you want to set those timeline goals in terms of like, I am going to get through this much by this day, or this is the time I have. I work on my hypermobility stuff from 4 to 6 on Wednesday afternoons. And you work through as much as you can during that time frame, and then you kind of bookmark it and you do that again. And there's 2 reasons. One, things will tend to take up as much or as little time as we designate them to do, but we can also have this like, I'm gonna do it later, and I'm gonna do it later, and later doesn't exist. So what we try and do is kind of put a parameter on being reasonable with how much you can get through, depending on your circumstances, but having those check-in points so that way you don't have this information and these resources that you don't actually ever get to use because you never quite get through it. So progress, even slower progress, is better than no progress. And for anyone who's ever been in that no progress phase, can really attest to that. So if you're going through the modules and as you get through module 1, you're finding like you really do better at half a module a week, then set that pace for yourself and you can make those adjustments. I would not do more than 1 module per week though. So if you feel like you're super motivated and you're like, I got through 1 module in 2 days, I want to do the next. I would actually encourage you, if you're on that side, to kind of slow down, incorporate all of that information for that week before you move on and start doing the next. And that's purely because these are all things we want to make more long-term permanent changes. And our brains can really only focus on 2 to 3 things at a time. So if you're trying to do all of this and you just keep cramming information in, that's helpful in that specific moment, but then you're going to lose a lot as you continue to work through. So I would say no more than 1 module per week, But if that is too fast of a pace for where you are at right now, then I would break it up and do half a module a week. And if you feel like that's even too much for you, then try and break up the modules where you're doing like a third or a quarter. I would not go below that, because if you stretch it out too far, you forget what was in the beginning by the time you get to the end. So definitely, just kind of pick your pace and then keep going with that. And if you have a week where things don't go as planned, just understand, like, okay, you had a week and then you pick up the next week right where you left off. Don't try and push it to where, okay, now I have to catch up, or just accept that that was that week and then start again. And so that way it helps to keep you on track, keep you from being overwhelmed, or keep you from having a negative feeling about the course because you're trying to do too much or force it into a space that doesn't work as well. And my last comment with that is, definitely have some dedicated time. Schedule it in like you would a meeting. Have some time to be able to kind of work with and start to incorporate the information, because it does take some time and effort to do that. And if you're trying to do that while you are doing 4 other things, that a lot of that can get lost. So hopefully that helps, and definitely give me feedback on how fast you are actually working through the program, because I would love to have some of that data and information too. If you feel like 1 module a week is reasonable, or half, or I would love to get some more aggregate information from a lot of different people on where they're at and how that is going.